Hi, everyone. I am Justin Locke, Dr. J. Today, for the fifth Quantapalooza podcast, we want to discuss relearning how we learn. Now, before we start, I always like to put a real world context to these subjects because I have amazing, inspired colleagues, friends, mentors, leaders all across many walks of life, many continents. And so today is not an indictment on educators. Today is us having an honest conversation about how we learn institutionally so that when we say things like, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at cooking, I'm not good at relationships, I'm not good at rock climbing, what does that really mean? And especially now putting on our technologist hat, whether you live full time in your career or you just use it to advance yourself, giving yourself the grace to relearn how you learn is the goal of today's podcast. Now, contextually, despite the fact that education systems are quite different across the world, it's fair to say that if you have the luxury of being allowed to go to school, the first few years from when you're 4 to you're 9 or you're 10 is really much more based on the excitement of learning, pressure testing concepts. You may get some type of score to give you and your loved ones a sense about how you're doing, but it's not so much a grade. So when you're 9, you may be doing a lot of science experiments and you're encouraged to go big. Your mistakes are celebrated. You're encouraged to get messy. And yes, you are given a structure to land those ideas in a way that as you grow on to the next year, you can build on that. And there's a real purity to that because you're not afraid of learning and you don't feel that there's a punishment for guessing wrong. You have a structure. It's almost like an innovation incubator. You have some structure so that you know what you're going towards and you can learn from others, but you have the freedom to really neurologically and physically learn and apply those skills. Now, depending on the country, but somewhere around 10 or 11, you start getting a grade. Now, at first, this is sold to you as, well, grades are just part of this as it's getting older, but don't worry about it. Still be inquisitive, hungry, make mistakes, go big, but land. But like everything that gets operationalized, it becomes natural. At some point, the number becomes a story. And at some point, as you're getting older, you realize the closer that your score is to 100% or 4.0, or pick your academic high bar du jour, you not only are treated better, you're given more resources, but for most of us, your life at home is much easier. You may have the same passion and smarts, but if you're in a situation where your learning style is different, and all of a sudden, if your teacher is not aligned to your learning style and you get a grade that's lower, no matter how supportive the situation is, over time, you are put on a different road. And again, it'll be easy to, from my friends in academia, to say, now, Justin, that's throwing, as they say in North America, rocks in glass houses. And believe me, anyone who knows me at all, even a little bit, knows that I was a late bloomer, to be polite. And the only reason why I'm here is the love and patience of many teachers after I graduated high school to get me on track. So I'm not being self-righteous. But if you even look at the self-learning tools in languages or science or math or cooking, the apps have to sell. So there's a gamification to it, which again is fun. There's nothing wrong. Like I'm a baseball sports technologist. My entire life is published. So I'm not adverse to being judged. But I do know that there are times, and I'm guilty of this too, where you end up focusing more on the score than learning. And what I would say heading into the Western New Year is allow yourself the grace to relearn how you learn. Allow yourself the fact that maybe it's not that you're not good at math. Maybe you're very good at math or cooking or relationships or rock climbing or quantum mechanics or podcasts. But maybe because at an early age, 10, 11, 12, you are not getting the grades that you were getting the support of, and it just became easier just to do something else. And again, I myself have fallen to that too, so I'm not being self-righteous. Because if you approach the true learnings for your career, areas that you may be getting in your performance review, like um, needs to improve your technical skills, needs to understand how to communicate digitally. And instead of internalizing that guilt and frustration, maybe just say, if I gave myself 12 months to really work at it, and if I allow myself to say that if I get lower scores and someone comments on it, I'm not going to let that neurologically set me back. I'm going to channel my inner 9-year-old. I'm going to get messy, but with purpose because I believe in myself. I think you can really move mountains. Now, let's apply relearning how you learn a technology. Things are moving fast, but things have been moving fast, arguably for the last 4,000 years, just at a different rate. And with technology, in many ways, what's happened the last 5 years would have taken hundreds of years, thousands of years before. So the speed is there, but let's take a step back for if you're someone that says, well, Dr. J, I'm not good at technology, I'm going to a little bit lovingly challenge you in that statement. Because the very fact that you're watching this podcast, the very fact that you're engaging means that you do have a digital acumen. But what I do think you should do, again, for your own growth is really break down the statement, write it down. If you're saying, I'm not good at technology, does it mean you don't understand how things are connected? That's fair. Is it that you want to grow in an area outside of your field and you don't know how technology helps you? That's fair. Is it that you have no idea when someone talks about lines of code or a quantum computer or edge hardware? What does that even mean? That's fair. But what I would say is if you break it down, and I would do it in 2 lists, pick something that you're really good at or passionate about. So let's say you really love cooking. And please, if you do, call me because that's not one of my material strengths or need your coaching. But write down the recipe, write down the steps that you do to make your favorite dish. And not just the steps as in the ingredients, but how do you store the dishes? How do you prep? How do you multitask? Or how do you zone in and not be distracted? So, all of the neurological steps that you do, not just the steps for the product. And what you will find is it's because through repetition and passion and confidence and you giving yourself the grace, you become very good at it. Now, apply the same thing to technology. Now, you're right. You're not going to be able to list at the same detail how, if you don't know much about quantum computing or the AI software paradigm or how robotics or edge hardware will contribute to your job, that's fine. But break it down into the questions. So let's say you own a bakery in Hillsboro, Oregon. We've got some amazing ones. I encourage you to shop local. So maybe the questions become, can I afford a robot for $2,000 to stir or knead dough at midnight when I'm asleep? That might be a question. Another question is, can I have AI peer review new recipes to see if there are trends that my customers might like to see me evolve my bread or muffins to? That's a question. For quantum computing, as a small bakery, it might be if I ran my recipe 100 million times, a billion times, would there be deeper patterns throughout the history of the ingredients of this cookie that might help me connect with my customers? Now, if you've noticed, when you're relearning what you learn, you're applying your neurological decisioning and the confidence that you have at what you're strong at to the technology side of it. And now suddenly it's not so scary because now what you've done is you've invited questions for you to ask more questions. Now, to make it manageable, because most of us are working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, or if you're in the job market, you are searching for jobs 60, 70, 80 hours a week, which is just as neurologically time demanding as being employed. So believe me, I stand with you. But when you break it down like that, you have more questions. Now, about learning how you learn, remember when we talked about the analogy of being the fun 9-year-old getting messy with the science class, there was also the second part, which was the structure, right? Having an end game to have for you to show growth and for you to be able to share with others. So this is where the learning you have to learn, now you apply a little bit of structure, which is when you're breaking down the areas that you want to relearn or learn, and you're giving yourself the grace to make mistakes, and you're giving yourself the grace to put yourself out there, but set some realistic 1 week goals at a time so that you can begin to see movement. And what you will see for a few cycles, and in some of the software technology world, we call it a sprint. So maybe a sprint of 1 week. You will see after a few sprints, not only are you asking more questions, but as you're forming answers and as you're allowing yourself now to pressure test those answers to your real world areas that you're strong at. So like if you're a baker and you're getting these first answers about how many times a recipe could be run and do customers, and now you're actually trying it, what you've learned technologically, you're trying it in your real world operational career. And you're coming back with new questions or new learnings, and you're teaching the robot what you've learned. You're building an iterative muscle. So it's not just this endless cycle of back and forth prompts and answers. You're building new muscle, not just with how you interact with technology, but you're building new neurological muscle. You're expanding your horizons, but you're doing it in a way that you're playing to your strengths of how you learn. And you would be very surprised 1 year from now, the things that you say you're not good at today, you will be teaching others. Typically, there is, again, I'm sure that I have many passionate researchers that will give me their own timeline, but relatively speaking, if you do something with a full-time mindset, I'm not saying it has to only be 80 hours for that thing, but if you incorporate with a full-time mindset, a new muscle, in 1 year, you are basically in the top 5% of your field in most fields, right? And when you look at it like that, it's no longer, oh, I can't do math. It's, hey, I need to spend a real year getting really deep in math and then see where I want to go from there. Well, that's a much more manageable thing. And that's in the job market what we all do. That's what I do. I see people, I work with people, I meet people every 4 hours who have skills that they do effortlessly. And I'm like, I could never do that. And then I have to stop myself, stop that closed mindset and say, if I want to do that, I need to put in a year and then see where I'm at. And I may not play violin like that amazing person that I saw, but that doesn't mean I have to go through my life never touching a violin. And that's a little bit about where I want to, even my own colleagues in technology and edge technology, I want to challenge us, which is it is very easy when we're passionate to do a bunch of podcasts and papers that throw a bunch of acronyms, a bunch of LinkedIn achievements. And yes, I'm guilty of that too. So I'm not being self-righteous. But what we're doing is we're turning off 95, 96, 97% of the ecosystem. And that serves no one either. So I'm looking at myself in the mirror, the same thing that I'm sharing with the podcast. These are muscles and areas that I have to also work on. But this is my loving goal for you for the new year, which is relearn how you learn, apply the methodologies of what you are passionate about to some area that you are currently not strong in, because then you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just applying it to a different curriculum. Set weekly goals, work with your technology, work with your AI, work with your computing, do some own research, whatever neurologically your studying habits are, but write things down so at the end of the week, when you're starting your new sprint, your new week, you feel like you're seeing progression and you're also allowing yourself to learn from your mistakes and share those mistakes with your AIs or your friends, even better with your human friends. But because in that space, it's like you're the 9-year-old again, you're sharing a mistake to learn. And also there are patterns and mistakes that can also be assets that can be new products. It no longer is, wow, I got a low report card. I don't want to go home and face my loved ones. And I know that feeling from childhood very well. But we have to be the quarterbacks, the CEOs, the mentors of our own career story. And at the end of the day, we are the CEOs of our life's journey. So we have to take charge, but also allow us the grace to grow. On behalf of the entire Quantapalooza team, to my teammates across the world, and I won't do justice with all languages, but I want to say thank you. Merci beaucoup. Muito obrigado. Muchísimas gracias. Bahut danyavat. Большое спасибо. Domo arigato. Mille grazie. Sheshenin. Dankeschön. Tusen tak. And to my ohana, namakaponi Hawaii, mahalo. Happy New Year, everyone. Cheers.